G55, next number, G57.
This is Tuesday night for John Calvin. His favorite gay bar, his favorite people. Bingo and dancing in his current hometown in Edmonton, Canada. But for Calvin, it's bittersweet because it might not last. He's fighting to keep from being sent from Canada to the West Bank. He says it's also a fight to stay alive. If you are sent back, what will happen to you?
It's a certain death. That's undisputable fact. Literally as if my life is hanging by a thread.
Calvin is a Christian convert. He's also gay. And where he comes from, he says it's a deadly combination. Calvin is the grandson of the co-founder of Hamas. He has 5 uncles, all in and out of prison for committing acts of terror.
My family was very, very extremist. Islam, Hamas were the 2 things that my family revolved around. Since I was 3 years old, I was being taught Quran and historical stories about the Jews, how they planned to kill Muhammad.
Calvin says at 14, he ran away from home to get away from his family, illegally crossing the border to Israel. He was arrested and sent to an Israeli prison where he had an experience that changed his life.
I was sexually assaulted by another Palestinian fellow. Sorry.
It was his treatment after the attack that he says turned his core beliefs upside down. He says Israeli prison guards showed him compassion.
That was the breaking moment for me. That was the moment when I started breaking off from my beliefs.
When he came back home, he says he started looking for meaning outside of Hamas and found it in an unlikely place given his background, Christianity. Calvin says when his father found out, he tried to organize an honor killing.
My father have actually planned it, so I was to be put to death.
Calvin fled to Canada in 2010, where he applied for refugee protection. But that application was denied earlier this year. The reason? The very reason he says he left, Hamas.
At the end of the day, if they determine that he is a member of a terrorist organization, then he simply can't claim any sort of refugee status.
The Canadian government cited his admission that he'd been a member, along with many in his family. He was ordered deported.
The evidence consisted of him essentially carrying some messages that he hadn't read from one of his uncles to another one of his uncles. There was evidence that someone had given him a handgun, but he certainly wasn't involved in any actual acts of terror.
We called Calvin's father. He denied being a member of Hamas and says he never tried to kill his son. But then he made a damning reference to Saddam Hussein's son-in-law, who was killed after he defected.
Well, our family's no less dignified than Saddam Hussein's family. His fate may not be different than that traitor general Hassan Kamal, who was the son-in-law of Saddam Hussein's.
The implication? He could be killed by the community. Facing deportation, Calvin received another blow. His mother disowned him. She did it by text.
Don't call me again. I don't think I could lose anything more than that.
Then your mom?
No, No, I don't think so.
The Canadian government would not comment specifically on John Calvin's case, but says a risk assessment is one of the safeguards to ensure people in need of protection are not removed. For Calvin's friends, it's unthinkable.
This is what we want to see people do. We want to see people who have a family history with Hamas and other organizations escape that and find safe places like what we have here. This is where he belongs.
Just weeks ago, he learned the date he'd have to leave, November 4th.
Not knowing if you're going to live or die on November 4th. The anticipation that you're gonna die on November 4th.
So this admitted member of a Hamas family who is now openly gay and a practicing Christian likely will be deported unless Canada or another Western country believes him when he says he left Hamas behind when he left the West Bank. Lori Siegel, CNN Money, Edmonton, Canada.